Hello, this is Daryl here, sending love as always. Thank you for tuning in. I just want to say if you like this interview, you can check our website for companion workbooks, action guides, tools, checklists, templates, and show notes with links for everything mentioned on the call. Just visit bestbusinesscoach.ca. That's best, B-E-S-T, businesscoach.ca. Enjoy. Hi, I'm Daryl Urbanski, and welcome to the Best Business Podcast. My mission is to help create 200 new multi-millionaire business owners. How? You'll do better when you know better. In my interviews, you'll hear from self-made millionaires, seven-figure business owners, authors, and world-class experts sharing how they did it so you can too, without experiencing the same obstacles they did. Now, if you like this interview, please share it with a friend you think will benefit. They'll appreciate it, and I will as well. You can also connect with me on social media. Look for Daryl Urbanski, D-A-R-Y-L, Urban Ski, U-R-B-A-N-S-K-I, and add me so we can be friends. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy what I've prepared for you right here, right now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always, and today we are joined by Samantha Riley, author of the new book, The Heart of Entrepreneurship. Samantha made her first $1 million by her mid-20s as a high school dropout selling dancewear through her retail stores where she literally eliminated her competition. Now, over the past 20 years, she's built several successful businesses and worked with over 100 experts, coaches, and consultants to help them live the life they envisioned when they first quit their day job. She's here today to tell us about what she learned in 18 years of retail, as well as researching buy buttons for the top 1% wealthiest in the world and helping so many business owners better position themselves for a greater chance of achieving their goals and dreams. Samantha, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing, and how are things in the land down under?
It's awesome. It's fantastic, beautiful and sunny and warm here on this side of the earth.
Nice. Total opposite up here in Canada. We had our first big dump of snow last night, and so
yeah, definitely the opposite. It's beautiful blue skies, nice and warm here.
Well, I'll have to come down and visit some point in time. And you're right by the beach, aren't you?
Correct. Yeah, beautiful northern beaches of Sydney. It's I think probably one of the most beautiful parts of the world. Done lots of travelling, and I just always come back here. I love it.
I mean, I was fortunate enough. I got to tour around Australia when I was a kid, but I'm overdue, so I don't know if this snow gets any worse. I might have to plan a trip to come down there.
Come back.
So thank you for your time and for joining us today. Obviously, just with the intro, it probably piqued some people's ears. So, I mean, to have accomplished that at such a young age and just to even have that ball rolling, I mean, a lot of kids, they're not even sure what career they want to do by the time they hit 20, let alone be in something that's gearing up to being $1 million, right, income. So how did you even get started? Like, do you come from a family of entrepreneurs? Where did you get your business sense? And how did you even get into that dancewear industry?
Yeah, okay. So it's, as all of us have our story, I did not come from an entrepreneurial background. My parents were blue-collar workers and had some pretty outdated ideas of, go to school, get good grades, get a job, the usual. I kind of knew that I was a little bit different when I was selling homemade sweets at school when I was 8 years old, where all the other kids were giving them away. I was like, no, you can pay me for them. So, that was my first business. But I was very, very different to most people. I did leave school at 16. I did it in the middle of a class. It wasn't even, it wasn't planned. I just was in the middle of a class and I was sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, this is just BS. And I just got up in the middle of a class and walked out. And had a job by the next day, so that I knew that my parents wouldn't force me to go back to school. I thought better organise myself a job. So I did that. I was married and had my first child by 17, so I grew up very, very quickly. I wasn't like most other kids my age, and did the corporate thing for a couple of years and really, really didn't like it. Again, it was that I couldn't think in the box. I didn't, I'd say, oh, why are we doing that? And the answer was, well, because that's what it is. And I was like, but it doesn't make sense. You could do it this way, or why don't we try it this way? So, my thinking and the way I did things was always very different. So I was just speaking with my husband one day and I said, look, I'd really love to open a dance studio. It's what I've always wanted to do. So he said, well, why don't you? So I didn't even put that much thought into it. I guess being young, it's a bit gung-ho. You don't think things through properly. It's probably not the way I'd start a business these days, but back then I'm like, oh yeah, okay, let's do it. And I just did it,
Right.
So that was my first business, which was a dance studio. And then, I ran that for a year while I was still working my corporate job. And I noticed that there was a problem with my parents were coming back to me and saying they were really struggling to purchase the uniforms or the dance shoes for their children because there wasn't really anywhere in the area that was open, at times that suited them, and they had to take a big drive into the city to go and get things. So I just started asking other dance teachers if their students also had the same problems. And when we opened our shop, it was just about solving the problem for my students. So that's how it came about. And I ended up doing that for 18 years.
Wow.
So that's how we started. It was, I guess, the first problem that I solved was I wanted to get out of a corporate job and do my own thing. And the second problem was just solving a problem of my current clients and running with that.
Yeah, I'm a paper and pen guy, and I literally just wrote that down to bring up later. Solving problem for buyers/students. I love that because you're like, it was just a side thing. My students/buyers were having a problem, and I solved it for them. And hey, I ended up doing that for 18 years and making $1 million. What do you know?
Yeah.
But I love that because it's really important, especially for the people listening. I know a lot of people that get confused. They're like, oh, I got, 5,000 friends on Facebook. I've got, there's a huge difference between serving an audience and serving buyers. And a buyer is a buyer is a buyer in the sense of your buyer of your stuff. We might get into this later, but if they spend money on what you do, they'll either give that money to you or to someone else. And you really need to take really, really good care of those people. And like what you did, listen, because they might tell you something else that you can do for them that could turn into $1 million business. And it's just an extension of what you already have going on. So I love that. That's really huge. It's really powerful. And it's just, honestly, it's so simple. You're like, I had people that paid me money for stuff and I fixed the problem for them and I just did it really well. And I focused on that and did that for 18 years. I mean, I love that because it's just very pragmatic and realistic, and it obviously produces results. So, now
it's all about listening to. I just want to clarify what you said then. Though it's also about listening to the right people. Sometimes we can get caught up listening to people, but it's not necessarily the right people, i.e., the people that we can help. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, as a side note, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're going to bring up your perfect segue into what I wanted to ask about because I've been hearing about this more and more and more. And to be honest, for our podcast listeners and that, I do have a monthly program for some of the people that want to be part of the 200 that are going to break through the 7-figure ceiling. But in the research for that, I've been looking at a lot of other programs that are available out there and talking with a lot of friends. And I wanted to ask about your thoughts on education because you were in school and you're like, kind of, this isn't really for me. This isn't what's going to get me to my goals. And you walked away from it. And I know I've been looking at some stuff, that I think I'm an expert in that I could educate people on. And I'm seeing like university courses that are like $30,000 for a single year. The people teaching it have no track record, no credentials, but they're big in academia. And I'm just, when you look at the curriculum of the course, and I'm like, there's like, what about doing? When did doing ever become a bad education? And I just wanted to ask your opinion on that. Like, what are your thoughts? Because you have children and you've raised them, and then how do you approach that? What's your thought on that? Do you still put your kids into formal school and think that that's it, or? Like, I'm going to shut up because I don't want to answer the question for you. But
it's a super interesting question, and it's it's actually one of my greatest passions because I help out a charity that teaches entrepreneurship to children. So I'm very much into education. However, I believe that the current traditional education system, I don't believe is serving our children. I totally believe in education. Ever since I left school, I haven't stopped learning. Mm-hmm. It's just that I haven't done traditional learning. I think it's hilarious and also / sad and scary that you can go to university and study entrepreneurship. Like, what? Just to me, that just does not make sense.
No, that's such an oxymoron.
It totally is an oxymoron. So I did struggle with putting my children through traditional school. My children's father is a traditionalist and also believes in getting good grades and going to university. So we did butt heads over that a lot. So the children did go to traditional school, and then we had to have a big discussion with them, you know, what is it that you want to do? Because for some careers, you do need to go to university. And I probably believe that maybe only 3% of the population, and that's just a number I've pulled out of the air myself, is probably suited to being in business. You know, the other 97% aren't actually suited to being in business. You need to have a certain mindset and, you know, there's all sorts of things that have to come into play. And my two oldest children are both in traditional jobs. And I had to listen to them when they came to me and said, but Mum, we don't want to do what you did. We don't want to work as hard as what you did. We want to be in a job where someone pats us on the back and says, wow, you've done a great job. You know, no one did that for you. You were the one doing that for your staff. We don't want to live that world. So for them, traditional worked. For me, not so much. And I would suggest that for any business owner that probably, or entrepreneur, the place that you need to do your learning is from someone who has done it before you, not necessarily someone at a university or a school. It's, okay, who's achieved what I'm trying to achieve, or who's 6 months ahead of me? They're the people that I want to learn from. So very different way of thinking, but totally all for education.
Yeah,
just making sure that the education fits the outcome that you're trying to achieve.
I think that's a great way to say it, because you're right. There's a lot of jobs that you do need a traditional education for to get properly certified and to learn to learn how to do the job. But then there are a lot of others that you know, like you said, it might not be serving them well. And it's funny because I finished high school, but I never went to college or university. And the town I grew up in is Kingston, Ontario, in Canada, which has Queen's University, which is one of the most prestigious universities in Canada, and I believe it's in the top 5 in North America. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen it on a few top lists, and I know at least in Canada it's one of the top 3 schools. And because I didn't go to the university, there was sort of a pressure, like a sense of like, am I falling behind? Because I had a lot of friends that went ahead, and obviously growing up in the city, you meet a lot of people who, you know, derive a large amount of pride from their accomplishments and accolades in academia. So like you, even though I wasn't so much of a student, I've always been very, very studious. And I wonder, for at least some of the listeners, at least it might resonate for them, if they've, you know, felt like they didn't, traditional education didn't serve them. I want to reassure you that you can still make a lot of money and have a lot of security in your life and help a lot of people without having to get a university degree. So, and that's just a bit of a side note. I mean, a great place to start, obviously, is reading books like yours. Right?
Totally like mine.
That's right. The Heart of Entrepreneurship. I mean, that wasn't a planned plug, but heck, might as well since we got you here.
Let's take it.
Yeah, that's right. So, well, it's purely serendipitous just to have this theme, but I think it's just been on my mind a lot. Especially, I have a cousin of mine. She's been getting in trouble a lot lately. She's 15 years old. She's, you know, she ran away for a week and she's been skipping classes, and, you know, she's got 2 older siblings, and so I think she's got a lot of free roam, and I know she's very, very smart. She's a really good kid. So it's also just been on my mind because I think that might be part of the problem. I think the education system just might not be serving her, and she would be better suited for a path that's more authentic to her, where she can, you know, try a few different things, see what she likes and doesn't like, find some mentors, read a ton of books on a certain topic, and just really dive deep and pursue that. So that's really been on my mind. But forgive me, I want to get back to kind of the topic. And I guess your book is called The Heart of Entrepreneurship. So first of all, why that title, and what inspired you to even write this book?
So the title, when I actually wrote the book, it had a different title. And it was really funny. It actually, I wrote it on a writer's retreat. So I was there with two other authors and my publisher, and I'd handed in my manuscript the day before, and I'd just done the brief for the designer. And I was sitting inside, and we're just having smoothies, and we were sitting next to the beach, and I was chatting with one of the other authors, and I just said, it's just not feeling right. The title's not encapsulating exactly what it's all about. And we started getting, quite animated and passionate in this discussion about, what it is that my book was bringing. And it was actually someone else that came up with the title. And the second he said it, there was 2 other people sitting on the balcony, and their heads just flipped around mid-sentence and just went, did you just say the heart of entrepreneurship? And I'm like, I know, right? And, as any entrepreneur does, one of us is on Google checking that no one else has done it. Someone's on Amazon. Someone's checking the URLs available. And within 5 minutes, we're just like, yep, let's do that. And so that's how it was named. It was actually someone else. And when he said it, I was just like, oh, my God, that's it. That's exactly what my book's about.
Awesome.
Because for me, the heart of entrepreneurship has two meanings. So one of it is it's the heart of your business. It's the heart of everything from where everything stems. But it's also the second meaning is it's coming from your heart. It's what you're passionate about. It's what your legacy is. It's what you're giving to the world. So, I just love that because that's what I'm all about.
That's so awesome. And that's such a great topic. And I love helping entrepreneurs and business owners because I've had a couple of different businesses that I've had varying degrees of success in, some really big wins, some so-so wins, of course, a couple of failures. But one thing I noticed especially and why I love helping entrepreneurs and business owners so much is because, in my businesses that I've been a part of, maybe you have a few hundred to a few thousand customers as your customer base. And you really are helping those people. Testimonials are real. And I love testimonials. I love success stories. I love hearing that from people. But when you tap in and like with your book, The Heart of Entrepreneurship, and you help entrepreneurs, if you help 10 entrepreneurs, if you help 20 entrepreneurs, and they each have a few hundred customers or a few thousand customers, now you're having an exponential impact on the world. So I think it's a really powerful mission, and I think it's a really good cause. I think that we need to support entrepreneurs because they're very much a misunderstood breed of individuals, and it's not such a clear-cut path like, like traditional education makes it sound like, right, for some of the jobs. So I think a book like yours definitely has a lot of value just to help people figure things out more. There's a lot of personal development and personal research. There's a great book called Market Leaders, is it? I'm going to have to put a link after this to make sure. But it talked about that there's 3 ways that any business can dominate any market. And one is either with the best product. The other is with the best marketing and customized marketing, like the done for you, or not done for you, but the for you solution. People hear the marketing, they're like, wow, that's me. I'm a left-handed, one-legged blonde lady who's, a fan of tennis. Or it's just operations like Walmart, where their operational systems are so efficient, they can survive on margins that other businesses can't even fathom. And so they just completely obliterate the competition. So, there's not just one path. There's got to be, people have to find their own route. And so books like yours are a huge benefit and a huge asset to people. So what are some of the discoveries and some of the things you discussed in the book?
So this book is based on what I've learned over the last 20-something years in business. That just shows my age. But, it's been a huge journey, but the entrepreneur, I talk about the entrepreneurial roller coaster. My partner actually, who is working in corporate, so kind of doesn't understand my world that much, sort of says, I don't feel like I'm on a roller coaster with you, babe. He's like, I feel like we're sitting at the top of like a really steep hill in a go-kart and you're just like pulling the brake off. We're just going down at breakneck speed. That's what our life can be like, right?
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Totally. So, I wrote this book for entrepreneurs exactly like what you were saying. Entrepreneurs are very passionate and they're coming from a place of heart and they want to help people. So, it can be a very lonely world, and I want people to understand that if we all came together, the ripples that we could create together would be so much bigger. Stop being so lonely, and people I work from home and people say, oh, you haven't been out of your cave in a week. And sometimes I don't. I get totally focused on what I'm doing and I work in my cave, but lots of us do that. Yes. So it's about, okay, let's all, come out of our caves, join together and help each other and create a bigger difference, because the ripple effects from that will be huge. I was listening to John Lee Dumas actually the other day, and he was saying a lot of people give up because they might say, oh, I've only got 50 listeners on my podcast, and blah blah blah. And he's like, but now imagine that those 50 people are standing in front of you. Like, And you can actually visualize those 50 people that you're helping. And those 50 people have each got 50 people. And now all of a sudden, how does that change your thinking?
Yep.
And I found that very, very powerful because, it's very easy to get caught up into, I've only got this many in my database, or I only got this many downloads, or I only had this many click-through rates, or whatever else. But, if the numbers are there, picture those people as real people standing in front of you, and see how that changes your thoughts.
Yeah, and I think another thing, you were paying attention when the numbers were small. You ran your dance studio, and I'm sure that you didn't just overnight have a couple thousand members.
No,
and you were listening to them, and
that's right.
You were catering to them when the numbers were small, and that allowed you to tap into something that you could do for all of them at once, and it was a really important problem, and that was something that scaled and carried on for 18 years. So I think that you're right, that perspective is a huge, huge, huge part of it. And I think, just to try to even give the example, I love this analogy because when I first heard it, it made a lot of sense to me because I'm a fairly athletic guy, right? I love CrossFit. I've always been, since I was about 18, I've always been active, very active in martial arts and whatever. But it's the whole concept of if I snapped my fingers and gave myself Arnold Schwarzenegger's body in his prime, at his peak physique, how long could I maintain that with my current day-to-day routine, my current habits, my current diet? And that's where people get it twisted. And one of my mentors, Jim Rohn, God bless his soul, he had this thing saying that success isn't something you pursue. It's like a butterfly. When you chase it, it just gets away from you. Success is something you attract by who you become. And so I think what you just said there, I think that's like when people win $1 million. In fact, I actually met a high school friend, another girl we went to high school with won $50 million 2-3 years ago and just basically disappeared off the face of the planet. And I was like, well, that's probably for privacy reasons. And it also, to be honest, I don't want to be like a crab in a bucket, but I don't know. We'll see how long that 50 million can last because obviously it's a lot of money. But as you know, and I know that money can come and money can go really quickly. 50 million is a lot of money,
quickly.
but it goes really quickly, really quickly. You buy a couple cars, a couple houses, family, taxes, unexpected, expenditures, a couple trips, and suddenly you're like, hey, where'd that money go? I spent $300,000 in 5 months. Like what? It just so, and it's the whole concept that. Yeah,
totally. When it's something that I've talked about a lot. When we first opened the shop, our numbers were very small. You can't just open a store and have, Walmart numbers coming in the door on day one. It would, and in actual fact, thank goodness,
right.
Because what we learned was when you open a business, you're going to make mistakes. It is 100% going to happen. You will make mistakes. And boy, I would rather make the mistakes with little numbers than with bigger numbers.
Yes.
So that's something that lots of things that we tried and trialed when we very first opened our stores and when we very first opened the dance studio. I'm glad that we pushed and tried a lot of things very early because the numbers that we were playing with were so much smaller. And it gave us so many learnings so that when we did scale and get bigger, we already knew that those things wouldn't happen, so the mistakes weren't going to be as big. So it's really important that you still, you have those early days and you learn and make those mistakes because they're going to potentially mean that you lose less money down the track.
Yeah, so well said, so well said. And then you get to refine yourself because one of the things I love about being an entrepreneur and a business owner is that it puts a higher level, it sets higher expectations on yourself. Like a lot of people can't even manage. We talked about it again when someone wins millions of dollars. But a lot of people, like if you're an employee, a lot of people just have to manage their own personal finances, let alone have to manage the business finances and their personal finances and help with their staff because, right, there's tax deductions at the end of the year and there's, health plans and yada, yada, yada. You really have to be on top of your stuff. And even outside that, just even your interpersonal skills, right? You have to to have a team, you have to deal with customers. So there's like a higher level of expectation on yourself. I feel like personal development and entrepreneurship go hand in hand, and that business is very Shakespearean, where people's businesses fall victim to the owner's biggest flaws. Where either they're the bottleneck and they won't give up all the control, or they're pompous and they won't give people recognition and a chance to grow, and just all those things. So what can you speak to that? Do you agree? I mean, in 20 years for yourself, maybe, let's not talk about what we think about others, but for yourself, what were your biggest challenges in your career?
Yeah, I totally agree that being in business is your greatest personal growth journey that you can go on, period. It is, you learn so much about yourself, and exactly what you were saying, you not only learn how to control yourself, but you have to learn about psychology and how to get other people to do what you need them to do. You need to learn about psychology of your customers. How do I get my team to see my vision? There's so many things. But I have been doing this for a long time, and I have had multiple businesses. So the challenges along the way have been a little bit different. Probably one of my greatest challenges sort of back in the early days was because we were working the two businesses, I was working crazy hours. I had two little children, and I was working from 8 in the morning and walking in at 9 or 10 at night. And I was doing that all the time, 6 days a week. And sometimes on Sundays I would be in the studio and doing extra classes. So I was 7 years in, and I thought, oh my goodness, I felt so burnt out. And that greatest challenge for me then was understanding that I had to let go of that control. That, we all think that we can do it the best. And in an actual fact, I was the one that had the vision. But so learning how to hand over that control, even when I didn't think that people could do it as well as I could, but then understanding that they would bring different things into the business. And it took me a little while to understand that, okay, they might do it a little bit differently, but maybe my way wasn't so good. Maybe they're bringing a different level of something, into what's happening. But that then I could step back and get my space back so that I could continue to move forward. Otherwise, I would have been totally burnt out and doing nothing. And at that time, one of the mentalities of my business partner at that time was that, and it's what I call a scarcity mindset, is that you save money by doing everything yourself. Where what I have learned from being in that is that an abundance mindset goes, you know what, there's other people that can do that way better than me, that they're in their genius. I can hand over. I would rather pay money for someone else to do it better than I can, so I can go and do what is my genius, what I'm really good at, and building that team and understanding that, and I hear it a lot from startups, and you probably would as well, Daryl, but I can't afford it. And I say, well, if you really believe in yourself, then you need to afford it. You need to back yourself, and you need to invest in other people to help you grow your business, because it can't be done on your own. Yeah. So that was probably one of the, it took me a long time to learn that lesson, but it was a very big and powerful lesson to learn, that you can't have 7 figures on your own. It's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that was for me, it's funny you mentioned that, because that was the exact same lesson that I had to learn when I first did my, not my personal $1 million in income, but working with a client. We did, $3.5 million in 8 months, but 1.6 with a particular campaign that I built from scratch. And if I had tried to do it all on my own, I wouldn't have gotten all the parts together. So I definitely agree with you. A mentor of mine, I set a goal a while back that I was going to meet 10 millionaires, because, you were the average of the 5 people who spend the most time with. So I set a goal that I was going to meet 10 millionaires in a year, and I did. And the first one was purely by chance. And one of the things he said to me that really stuck with me, he said, Daryl, everyone's going to be a beta version of you. Everyone's going to be a beta version of how you think it should be done. But you need to manage based on results. Don't micromanage how they do it. Just manage by results, and make sure that you're tracking the metrics that really matter. So I think that that's a really important one. Just to reinforce what you said, because there's only so many hours in a day, and you can't do do it all on your own. And, and it's important to do what you love, but don't be a slave. And I mean, you talk about startups. There's a CrossFit gym that I train at. I love it. They really get the aspect of taking care of the community and really paying attention to the members. But they don't delegate at all. They've got a bunch of interns doing assistant coaching, but I remember I see them, like the owners, cleaning up the gym, and I'm like, guys, why are you cleaning the mats? Why are you the ones wiping down the equipment? You've got 6 interns literally sitting in the office playing on their phones, waiting for you guys to finish cleaning. So but they were like, no. Like they had guilt around delegating, and you can't push anything on them. So I'm like waiting, right? And then we just had the Christmas holidays, and I could see they were like, yeah, we're so ready to take a break, right? And I could just see that they're going to learn. Like I already told them they didn't want to listen, it's going to come around eventually. And so I agree, full force that's a really, really powerful and important lesson, that you have to build a team. If anyone listening to this call is trying to do everything on their own, you need a team. And first, I'm going to recommend the first thing you need to do is get an assistant. Get a personal assistant, a virtual assistant, someone that you can delegate to have prep stuff, do the little nitty-gritty stuff, to get things ready before you sign off, to start the letters and emails, and you can just come in and edit them and send them. Whatever efficiencies you need to make your day go faster, you really need to get that going. I think that's a really, really, really powerful tidbit, because leverage, the only way you're going to get any leverage is figuring out how to accomplish goals through other people. And for the rest of us listening to this, we should probably take another look at our teams and say, first of all, do we need everyone that's on our team? Are we missing people from our team? Do we need to add people to our team? Are we monitoring our team by the right objectives? And are we pushing them towards the right goals? Are we micromanaging them on day-to-day activities? Or are we doing results-based management instead, which is really at the name of the game? So just a little tidbit since we're on it, because I think that's a really good point that you brought up. And it's, and it's easy to just be like, oh, yeah, that's great, and move on. But no, that's the point I think we need to drill home, because that on its own, I mean, honestly, Samantha, in this call, we've already given people the keys to building $1 million business. Sell something people want, focus on solving your buyer's problems, do it better than anyone else, and build a team around you so you don't kill yourself. And, even what you said, the other part I love that you said is that if you think you can't afford it, then maybe you can't financially afford it, but money is just one form of currency. Like, that's the other part. It frustrates me because I've lived my life like a millionaire my whole life. I mean, when I was 17, I wanted to travel and see Canada, and I couldn't afford it, so I hitchhiked, and I still got it done. But it doesn't mean like I was like, oh, I can't afford it, I don't have money for a car, for a ticket. No, I still went and got it done. Like, just get it done. Yeah. There's more available than just money. That's, you either have the knowledge, time, or money. Okay, often people don't have all three. They might have the time and the knowledge, but no money. Find a partner who has the money. You might have the money and the knowledge, but no time. Find someone who has the time. Bring them on as an apprentice or something. Like, you can always beg, borrow, barter, give equity in the business. Like, give up 5% of your company. Just to get some, like, do something. Just stop giving excuses. Just find a way to make it work. So, all right.
The power of connections, and the power of connecting with people and knowing what your outcomes are and talking to people about them is huge.
Yeah.
So, because maybe you can't come up with the solution of how it can happen, but someone else may be able to. So if you know what you're trying to achieve, speak with people around you, and think outside the box, and mastermind together and come up with a solution. And what you said is right. 9 times out of 10, it's not money.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So what was another challenge? I love this because you kind of gave some insights to this. So you started something, you found something you're passionate about, launched a dance school, helped your buyers, came up with some products. All of a sudden that started to scale. Then you were killing yourself, working too many hours. You realized you need to build a team. Were there any other key milestones and challenges that you had to come through?
Yeah, it was actually years and years later. So this is back in, this sort of started in 2010. I actually separated from my husband and we got divorced. And those businesses I sold to him. So I was back in no man's land. I was back in startup zone. The greatest challenge with that was, I'd been married since I was 17. I'd been in dance for my whole life. It was something that I knew really well. And I was pulled out of that world, and I was very alone, and it was the first time in my life I was ever alone, because I had been so young when I got married. And being divorced after being married for 20 years was just the greatest confidence, my whole world fell apart.
Really?
Whole world fell apart. You know, I just thought, oh my goodness, I can't do this on my own. I'm not good enough. And like all the other personal things that come in because you've just had, you know, everything just taken out from underneath you. So the greatest challenge there was actually not knowing my purpose. And it's something that, you know, I'd always known what is your purpose? What gets you out of bed in the morning? But all of a sudden I was at 40 years old going, okay, logically, I know that this is the key. I know that I'm really struggling because I don't know what my purpose is. But I spent the next couple of years like beating myself up because I couldn't come up with the answer. And the more I struggled and pushed, like, what is my purpose? And the more I thought, oh my goodness, Sam, how stupid are you? Why can't you come up with the answer? You know this is the key. It just sent me into a spiral that went down and down and down, where I got into this funk where I just could not figure out my purpose. And that was actually I would say that would be the number one greatest challenge I've ever had in business, was not knowing my purpose. So very different to scaling and, you know, leverage and all of that stuff that we talk about. Not knowing purpose completely just had me off kilter and really, really struggled, not just in business, but totally in life, because I didn't know what I was doing. And that all was turned around. I was in a mastermind one day and you know, we were having this conversation and, you know, very down on myself. What is wrong with me? I'm finding it hard to get out of bed in the morning. I'm really, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. I just feel like I'm not doing things as well as I could, not really serving enough. And she said, well, you know, what's your legacy? She said, imagine that you were at your own funeral and you're a fly on the wall. What would you like the other people to be saying about you? What did you achieve in your life? What were you really here for? And that's the day that the switch flicked for me, because straight away I knew what my legacy had to be. And from there, I you know, reverse engineered it. Well, this is what my purpose is. And from there, it was just like, bang, out of bed, jumping out of bed in the morning again. I understood what I needed to do to get to my end goal. So, you know, we talk about purpose and legacy, and some people think it's just a woo-woo thing, but it is the absolute core of everything that you do. When you know what that is, then, you know exactly how to execute that. My favourite quote I heard from Gary Vaynerchuk. He said that legacy is greater than currency. And that really, really sings to me, that it's not about the money. What are you really, really here to do? Because when you're doing that and you're on purpose, then the money will come. So
I love that. That's a great quote. And that's something that came up I did a second interview with Ryan Levesque. And, you know, he's been doing phenomenal. I mean, the guy...
Amazing guy.
He's not only brilliant and a great guy, but he's just really in his stride right now. So even financially, we were talking about that because, you know, for both of us, obviously I'm not at the level he's doing right now because he's really taken off. But I've obviously had a lot of success in my past and even recently. And, you know, we talked about how at some point, you know, like it really is true. I mean, there's a bit of a catch-22. Oprah said, whoever told you owning your own private jet won't make you happier is lying to you. And I agree, like that's funny, but I think it's true. But at the same point, there's been a lot of studies, and money cannot buy happiness. Money buys happiness to a point. Once you hit that point, you can afford everything you kind of want. You can afford to go on the vacation. If you want a boat, you can afford some sort of boat to go out on the water with. If you like to have a cottage, like you can afford those things. Everyone's like, oh, it'd be so nice. Okay, great. Snap your fingers, boom, you have them. Now, to just preface this with, for instance, what I said before, you might not even need the money to get those things. That's the other reason why money itself is not, like, it's okay to be money motivated, but a lot of those people that are money motivated, I'm very money motivated, and I know it comes from loss and fears from things that have happened in my past that have driven me to think that money is going to prevent those from happening again. And that's where a lot of people come from. Or, again, if you're money driven. But I think the real key there is that, like you said, legacy, having a lasting purpose, have your name live on forever. Steve Jobs. No one's going to forget his name. Bill Gates. No one's going to forget that name. Elon Musk. No one's going to forget those names, right? Benjamin Franklin. You know, there's a lot more to, and forgive me, I'm not mentioning any of the females who have obviously had major legacies in the world, but it's the concept that it's not just about money, it's about having some sort of goal that means something beyond just, collecting dollars for some sort of service or product. Because the reality is that if you're not a purpose-driven individual, actually I did an interview with Yannick Silver, and his whole book, he just did a book launch. He's really reorganizing all of his business coaching and programs to be behind purpose-driven businesses, because that's the way of the future, especially with how transparent the internet makes things. You can't just be out there trying to scam people and sell them snake oil. You have to have a mission and a purpose. You have to have a reason, because if the economy goes south and you're not attached to something that has staying power through generations, you're not going to make it. You're just going to be the Me Too business that gets cut off like fat, when the economy gets lean. So I think that's really important. And you're right. A lot of people say it's woo-woo, and it's hard, and it makes people think, and it makes their head hurt. And they're like, I don't know. And it takes time. You said for you it took years. But it's work that pays off, because I think when you find it, you'll never forget it, and you'll never have a problem getting up.
Yeah, but there is a balance, because you brought up a really valid point there, Daryl, which I didn't touch on, is that there does have to be some monetary goals there as well, because, just to pick a niche out that seems to always to often have problems is, that spiritual, that very, sort of, yoga, that kind of health sort of side. And there's many people in that niche that think it's almost evil to earn money.
They have negative feelings around that.
It's all around, pixies and rainbows and unicorns. But if they can't pay their bills at the end of the day, I'm sorry, but that's not doing any good for anyone. So there's got to be a really good mix there. It's got to be in balance. And balance is what it's all about.
And that's why, again, to bring back kind of what came up when I was speaking with Yannick about just the transparency of the internet. Of course there are bad apples. Of course there are snake oil salesmen. There are people out there that are scamming people. We can't get rid of them. But the vast majority of businesses have to solve a problem for people, and you get paid in relation to the size of the problem you solve. So if I'm just trying to get across town and I have all day to do it, I can buy a bike for $100 and pedal my butt there if I want. Or if I have to get there sooner and I don't want to be all sweaty, I can pay a couple of dollars and get on a shared public transportation and share the expense with a bunch of other people. I want to get there faster. Well, I can hire a cab, which will cost more, but I'll get there faster. But I want the luxury of being able to come and go as I please, and to have my own music, and to be able to carry a bunch of stuff with me. Well, now you can buy a car. That's a bigger size problem. It's the same thing, right? Versus if you're sitting at the desk of a convenience store and all you're doing is collecting cash and making sure people aren't stealing and putting stuff on the shelf when it shows up, versus the person who could save your child's life. Your child is dying, and this man or woman can save their life. How much is that worth? So when these people have, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've hit it a bunch of times very recently. And it's a frustrating thing, because money is not evil. It's like people want to project onto you their bad feelings about it, because they have, they don't have it, and they don't have a plan to get it. And so they just want to make it evil and bad and make excuses for themselves. And I think that for the vast majority of people, Bill Gates gave us all computers. He's one of the richest men in the world. Elon Musk, again, same thing. He's Tesla. He's bringing, electric cars. Even before that, PayPal. Even before that, he was doing you're right. And I don't know where people get it, and I don't know why people think it's evil, because money is just an object. It's not anything. It's potential. It's stored potential.
Absolutely. And those people that we're talking about, the ones that say that money is evil, I suggest probably let's go with the best business advice I could give right now. Get away from those people really, really, really fast and get them out of your life. Very damaging to be having and hearing those messages all the time, and to be having that sort of come into your way of thinking, and then try and be making money. You'll self-sabotage yourself, and all sorts of things will happen. So be very, very aware of the people that are in your world, what their beliefs are, what they're saying, how they're acting out, and make sure that you're spending your time with the people that are, exactly where you want to go or have the same values or the same ideas as you.
That's right. And if you're one of those people that feels like you can't, this came up just yesterday, what if you live with these people? What if you live in a city or a small town in a community? Well, that's where you can do things like, yes, you should spend your evening reading Samantha's book. Yes, you should be investing in a lot of books and a lot of courses and your education, because you could spend all night sitting there on your own and you won't think of this stuff yourself. So why not spend the money and make the investment? I mean, before we had the internet, the only place to get an the only place people got answers was from their own personal knowledge and experiences. If they didn't have the solution there, they would turn to their family and friends and people that they could reach directly to ask them and tap into their knowledge from their formal training and experiences. And if they didn't have the answer, then you'd have to go to the library and you'd have to go find an area, the library that had that category of books. You'd have to go all the way through the aisle and find the books that you thought might have the answer for you and take them off the shelf, 5 or 12 at a time, and then go sit down and flip through them and circle the parts that were important to you and write down your notes so you get the answers that you were looking for. But right now, you can easily just log online, go to Amazon, couple of clicks, you have a book being sent to you that's literally 20 years of research put into a few pages. I mean, one of the best investments is always someone's book because they put their heart and soul into it because it's their first introduction to you. And this is partially a pitch for Samantha's book, but it's also a pitch for all the other books that we mentioned on the show and all of you that are sitting there listening. Like, the book you don't own, you can't read, and the book you don't read can't help you. And if you've listened to the show, you've heard me say time and time again, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that's not me that said that, that's Jim Rome, but it's true. And just like you can catch colds from people, you can catch attitudes and opinions and ideas. And it's not that they're going to be so offensive that they pushed upon you. It's just little nudges. That's what Samantha said, why it's dangerous. They're going to say things and you're not going to want to rock the boat, and you're going to accept it and say nothing, because you don't want to insult them or offend them or, rock the boat. But now you're slowly kind of accepting that. And it's like, and it's just like a cold, you're kind of catching that. And it's not that they're bad people. It's like the whole scale of enlightenment thing. It's just that they've, one of my mentors, I'm going to swear, but he used to say, I'm Daryl, one of my jobs is your head's been filled with bullshit, and then there's a layer of concrete, and then more bullshit, and then over time there's more concrete and more bullshit and more concrete, and it's my job to drill through the concrete and break it up and then start helping you shovel the bullshit out. And I think that this is a great example where people say that earning money is evil. I think if you provide a good product and a good service and you really help people, you should have no guilt about getting paid for doing that for people. Capitalism's proved itself. Absolute capitalism definitely has evils, but a balance between capitalism with a little bit of social care and social services and social entrepreneurship has proven. I mean, Canada is a great example. We walk the middle line between capitalism and socialism, and I think we've got a great economy. I mean, we were one of the top 5 or 10 economies in the world to survive the last recession, and I just think that there's a lot to be said to that. Anyways, I'm totally on the rant. But Samantha, I just want to say, what habits do you feel have helped you? Just because so many years you've been working and building these successful businesses, what are the habits that you feel have really helped you be successful through the challenges, through the ups and downs? What do you think have really helped you become the best of who you are?
I think number one, it's knowing who you're surrounded with. So I talk about this a lot. So there's 3 layers of this. One is having a mentor. I really, really believe in the power of mentors. I've had one for the last 10 years, and I've had them on and off before that. Not only because you can tap into their mind and like you said, they get into the bullshit in your head because we all tell ourselves these bullshit stories continually, and it's nice to be called. It's not just about having the education to know what to do next. It's also being accountable to someone where they're going, exactly why are you not launching that product, or exactly why are you not doing what you said you would do? So mentors, very, very powerful. Out of those mentors, you normally you have access to some sort of community. And this is really important because these are people that are usually got goals similar to yours. They're on a journey similar to yours. This is where I find or have found what I call my inner circle. So this is my 4 or 5 closest friends who I am able to ring at any time of the morning or the night, which is usually when I'm having problems at some ridiculous time at the night because I can't sleep, or same thing, very early in the morning because I can't sleep. They're the people that I call on and they know my personal problems, because the whole world doesn't need to know if I'm having a relationship breakup, but someone needs to help me through that, because that will affect my business. So, having a mentor, having that inner circle, and then having your supporters. So your supporters are the people in the greater community that are there to also, that are on that journey. And they're there to help you, but more in the sort of the business transactions, or helping you to connect with other people. They don't necessarily need to know as much as your inner circle, but they still know a lot about you and your business. So I think that's really important, though. That's the power of connection and the power of people. As for personal sort of goals, I'm like you. I think it's really important to be healthy, because when you've got a healthy body, you've got a healthy mind. So going to the gym, making sure that I drink enough water, all of those kind of things that sometimes drop off, and I realize then I'll get into like, oh, I'm not doing so well today, let's just drop everything and go to the gym, or let's meditate, or let's do something for my mind and body. So that's really important. And I think one of the greatest things I've learned is that not to just dip my toe into the water. So what I mean by that is if I'm going to commit to doing something, I do it. I don't just try it, because that's when it doesn't work. I'll just give it a go, whether it's, I'll just try this business on the side while I'm still making an income in my job, or I'll just try this on a small scale and see if it works. It just never does. You've either got to be all in or all out. I'm either going to do it or I'm not going to do it. So, make that informed decision. Look at everything. Look at the pros and cons of whatever you're doing. But you've got to make that decision. Either you're in or you're out. And I find that a lot of people that are failing or not doing so well in their business, not making enough, is because they're just trying it. But it's like the universe is not going, okay, cool, that's what you want. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. They're just doing something. They're not really jumping all in. So that's probably the greatest thing.
Got it. So health, mentorship, accountability to someone, being surrounded by like-minded people, being committed to what you're doing, being disciplined, having fun, and being all in. It sounds like those were the ones that you were saying. And I fully agree, because you can't even you always said that. Try, there is no try. There's do or do not. And, of course I'm quoting Star Wars, but I think it's really true. I think you have to be committed to it. And I think people don't realize how much time they waste. We had a great interview with James Schramko, and he was talking about that same sort of thing, that a lot of people feel like they might not be getting results, but if you use any sort of time tracker on your computer, you might find that you're not getting results and you're spending half your day on social media, or like all these other things. And I really agree. I think that there's plenty of time in the day. People say they don't have enough time. There is enough time if you watch 2 hours of TV and if you, and you sleep a little bit extra. I mean, most of us, if we were better with going to sleep on time, or like I have a grandpa alarm, so it goes off, and that means I have to shut everything off and start getting ready for bed. But most of us can survive on 6.5 hours and be well rested and not be hurting ourselves in any way. And that gives you, if you're like, oh, I need 8-9 hours, no, you don't. Unless you're like 15 to 18, you don't need 8 to 9 hours. That's nonsense. And there's ways you can be more effective with your time. Time management is a huge thing. So.
Yep. Be very aware of when it is that you work best. So most days I start between 4 and 6 in the morning, because I know that I work best in the morning. Yep. So I'll wake up, get coffee, start at 4. People think I'm crazy, but by 4 in the afternoon, I'm ready to check out. Like, I'm done. Yep. I'm not an afternoon person. So, listen to your body, and we're entrepreneurs. We can do it all and have it all. So make it work for yourself.
That's right. We design our lives. So that's true. And it's about the journey. It's about discovering yourself. It's about discovering other people and how the world works. And it's about the story that it's unfolding and your own personal journey. And this kind of ties back to when we talked about the money to a certain point. I think in a lot of businesses, getting to, like, me and my buddy used to call it roof and ramen. Getting to roof and ramen, like where you're paying for your bills and you're feeding yourself. Just getting to survival mode. It's really important, and you need to grind. You need to get all the support you can to get there, and make sure that that you're in touch with your customers and what you're really selling, and that you're not pushing something into the market. And to get there as soon as possible, and to give yourself a deadline that if it doesn't work, you're going to move on, because everyone talks about perseverance, but, in business, sometimes you just have the wrong angle, the wrong approach, the wrong product, the wrong market, the wrong message. You need to change it up. And then you need to just be willing to push to get there, or have a deadline that you need to get there by before you move on. Because once you kind of can cover your bills in that, it should become about serving people and having fun. And after that, money's just a way of keeping score. So, because again, it's about the journey, it's about the stories. And this is something you brought up before when we talked last time that I thought was really interesting. And that was about why the wealthiest 1% will spend an insane amount of money on things like having a dinner made and their in-flight meal between locations. It's for the story, right? It's because the story that they're buying adds to their own personal journey. Oh yeah, there was this time where I spent $100,000, have this chef come and cook for me on my flight from Paris to London, and and he told me about how the salmon were from this special area, and everything was smoked with this particular oak from this particular tree in this particular part of the world, and I think that enhances their life, their journey, their experience, and for them, the money doesn't matter, right? It's just it's how exclusive it is. So,
well, it's about it's about the experience and the story, because that's what we're all here to live. It is that. It's the story that we're creating in our life, and the way we get there, and the things that we do along the way all add to that, the colourful tapestry that's being woven.
Mm-hmm. And how does that play in when people do their positioning? Because I know that's something you really help a lot of business owners with. They come to the market, they don't know how to present themselves well, or, they have no real idea of how they're perceived.
I think that you need to go back one step before that. And this is something that I've only just realised myself just recently. On a side note, when we were talking before about failures, you look at people that are really successful and have a look at the failures that they've had. And it's something that probably a lot of us don't talk a lot about. The more success we've had, let me tell you, the more mistakes and failures have happened along the way, huge amounts. Yes. So, that was just a side note there. Totally off track. Yeah. You're going to have to run that question behind me again.
Positioning, and how people aren't aware.
That's where I was going. So one step back. Instead of thinking just who I can help, start by thinking, what is it that I've experienced that I could possibly help someone else with? What story do I have within me that can help someone else? What is it that's unique and authentic about me that can help someone else that might have that problem? So instead of just thinking about the other person, start with yourself first. What is it, that's really important to me that I can passionately talk about for, 24 days straight without taking a breath? That's usually a really good place to start. Then from there, figuring, that's your message. So then you need to find the market that matches that message. And that's where your niche comes, where your market matches your message. And then, the extra little part about that is that market needs to be a market that can pay. So knowing that you can help 90-year-old Chinese ladies who do underwater knitting is generally not a really great market to go after, because you might be able to help them, but they probably won't be able to pay you a real lot, and there's probably not many of them. Right. So be very mindful of it. My mentor calls it, find a who that can pay. So all the time I'm thinking, okay, can that who pay?
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yes, make sure you find a who that can pay. I hope people are taking a lot of notes, because even though I'm interviewing and I know I'm sharing some of my insights as well, I take notes ravenously. I've got 2 pages already so far. So, it's all good stuff. I love these calls. I learn as much, and I love the feedback I get from listeners and callers, and even just when I post around and when we promote and share this interview, the things people will say. I mean, it's just all so beneficial. I learn from others. I learn from you. I learn by teaching. So it's all just a win-win-win for everyone. But I encourage everyone listening, again, go back, listen to this interview again, take notes if you didn't. Just the fact of taking pen to paper and writing things down will help solidify things in your memory, even if you never look at that paper again. They say it takes 7 things to get it locked into your long-term memory. Well, if you hear it, that's 1. If you hear it, think it, I need to write that down. You just thought of it twice. As you write it out, you're writing it slowly. That's 3 times. You'll read it again to yourself. Hey, that's 4 times. You teach it. Now you've had it 5 times. Look how, right? This is how we ingrain things we talked about education at the beginning. So even if you never look at it, that's why even learning how to do shorthand is beneficial, because you just want to get it down, get it out. There's just something magical about putting pen to paper. So
Oh, totally agree. And I like to do things more than 7 times. When I had my dance studio, even with my students, I used to, the really good students, they would like to take extra classes, and they would always like to take classes of the grades that were higher than them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would allow them to only if they took the grade that was below where they were at. Because when they've got the knowledge and when they can do that, taking it back to basics, you will take it in at an even greater depth. And I believe in that now. I'll go to the same conference, 5 or 6 times just to hear the same thing over and over and over again, because I think there's a stat that we're only conscious for 2% of our day. So when you're listening to someone speak, how much are you missing if you're only taking in 2%? How many times do I need to hear it, to get all of those learnings? So I totally agree with you there.
Yeah, so well said. Samantha, you've dropped so much wisdom with us today, and you've shared a lot of insight and a lot about your experience, and I hope the people listening have written down the points, and they like I said, we've taken the notes and have listened to our suggestions. What can you tell us, what's going on with your book? Where can people go to get it? And is it available on Amazon, or how do people find you?
Yeah, it is available on Amazon. You can also go to theheartofentrepreneurship.com if you'd like to pick up a hard copy. And if you go to theheartofentrepreneurship.com/Urbanski, I will give the first 20 people that purchase a hard copy of that book, I will send that for free.
Oh, wow. Oh, sweet. So, all right. What's that? Sorry, my ears freaked out. What? Oh, what's that again? So that's theheartofentrepreneurship.com/Urbanski, URBANSKI, SKI. Go on, get yourself a free copy of her book. That's awesome. Thank you, Samantha. I appreciate that.
Well, it's all about creating the ripples, isn't it? That's exactly what we've talked about.
And it really is true. And it's about paying it forward. And I find that and again, it comes back to feeling guilty about making money. I have no guilt about getting paid for helping others, because the testimonials are real, and it's just a beautiful, virtuous cycle to be able to give value and then be given value back. It's like you're loved by the universe. Like, it really is. When you put out there, it's like anyone listening to this, if you can remember the first time someone actually gave you money for your business to do what you do, all of us have that time. Probably even you with your dance studio. Do you remember your first student who signed up?
I can. I remember her name. I can remember even her date of birth, because I used to fill out her forms all the time. And we're still, she's in her 30s now, and she's married and has a baby, and we're still friends on Facebook. And and I can definitely remember everything about her.
Right. Me too. So, in fact, actually, I'm going to make a note. I'm going to send a postcard. All right. Yes. All right. So thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing it. I appreciate your time. I know with the time zone, you had to, I don't know, maybe you had to get up a little bit earlier than usual, but I think it was very valuable. And again, for the listeners, get what you can out of this call, look at your notes, and of course, make the list that we'll encourage you to make once you hear the outro. And just, Samantha, thank you again so much for joining us today. And is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Oh, do you know, we have just had I think we've had the most beautiful conversation. We've spoken a couple of times now, and I think it's all there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Samantha. I value and appreciate your time today, and I know everyone else on the call did as well.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a blast.
You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give to them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember, taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them, and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better. And your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.